Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Shut Up and Read. Today I'll be doing my book haul for the month of April, so let's just get right into it. So this month was actually not that bad. I didn't go too overboard. I mean, I did purchase a lot of books again, but it wasn't the past few months where I had, 50 plus books per month. This time around, I want to say I had about 30 to 40-ish books or so slightly better, but anyways, the first few books that I want to share are from Barnes & Noble. The first one is Killing November by Adriana Mather. This book caught my attention because this is supposed to be about a school for assassins, and that just seems so fascinating to me. Anything with assassins, to be honest, like I said in some of my previous videos, just always piques my interest, so I have very high hopes for this one. Then the second book that I got is Defy Me by Tahara Mafi. I don't really need to say about this book that much because it's technically the second book of the continuation series of the Shadow Me trilogy, which that is a huge mouthful, by the way. And I haven't read the first book that came out last year because I know I'm gonna like the series. I really enjoyed Shatter Me, so I have pretty high expectations for this trilogy, this continuation series basically. And so I don't want to read the first book because I know if I read the first book I will just die to read the second, and then once I finish this book I will be highly anticipating the final book. So I'm putting this book on hold for now, but I had to get it because of course I need it in my collection, so very excited for this one. Oh, by the way, the series is a YA kind of like dystopian kind of novel where it follows a girl. She has the power to basically kill someone based on the touch of her skin, and the book kind of just talks about her trying to come into terms with her power and learning how to use it, etc. And it's so good. A lot of mixed reviews, to be honest, but I personally really enjoyed it, so really high expectations for this second series. The next book that I got is Once and Future by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. Originally I wasn't going to pick up this book, but then I found out that this is supposed to be about King Arthur, but not just a classic take on King Arthur, but a gender bender. So Arthur is supposed to be a girl and her name is Ari. And not just that, but this is supposed to be like a sci-fi take on it as well. So sci-fi, gender bender version, King Arthur. I mean, who can say no to this one? The next book that I got is one that honestly has received so much hype recently, and I'm really hoping that it lives up to its hype because I hate it when books don't live up to its hype. But that book is Devouring Grey by Christian Lynn Herman. So this book is supposed to be a blend of The Raven Boys and Stranger Things, and Stranger Things I really enjoy, so I have pretty high expectations for this one. But for Raven Boys, I'm kind of mixed feelings about that. I liked it to some end, I didn't like it to some end, but I will include my reading vlog where I basically documented my entire experience while I was reading the Raven Boy cycle. But regardless though, a lot of people have been loving this book so much. I really need to pick this up as soon as possible. Then the next book that I got from Barnes & Noble is One Dark Throne by Kendar Blick. This is book 2 in the Three Dark Crown series. I haven't actually read the series yet, but it seems to have a lot of elements of things I really enjoy. For example, I believe there are 3 sisters who are basically fighting for the throne. It's also supposed to be about magic as well as strong female characters, and all 3 of those are aspects that I really enjoy, so I have pretty high hopes for this series. So the next 3 books that I got are from my book of the month. The first one is Sky Without Stars by Jessica Brody and Joanne Randall. This is supposed to be a YA sci-fi novel that is a retelling of Les Mis set in space, which I am so intrigued by. I'm just really fascinated with the fact that this is supposed to be a retelling of Les Mis because I feel like that has not been done very often or at all, to be honest. And honestly, the cover is absolutely gorgeous, so when I saw this from book of the month I was very intrigued to pick this up. The next book that I got is Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. This is a debut novel that features 3 strong females and their friendship, and it's set at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And I believe the book takes place when they first get to West Point, and it kind of talks about how their friendship develops, etc., and the resilience of this said friendship. So I'm very intrigued by this book. It sounds really good. I haven't heard too much about this until it was selected as one of the picks for book of the month, and then of course after that a lot of people were hyping it up and I became very intrigued myself, so very fascinated. Then the last book that I got from book of the month is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This book just sounds so fascinating to me. This is a courtroom thriller where it features a young single Korean mother who is accused of killing her autistic son. And the book kind of goes into how far we will go to protect our families as well as our deepest secrets. And as you guys all know, I'm in such a mood for mystery/thriller novels, so this book sounds right up my alley. Then if you guys have watched my previous book haul video, I mentioned how there were a few series where I couldn't get some of the books for and I couldn't complete my series. Well, I finally got some of them to complete the series. The first one is Half-Blood, which is book 1 of the Half-Blood trilogy, and the other one is book 2, which is Rebel Spring in the Fallen Kingdom series. Half-Blood is a book about witches and about abominations and trying to defeat, I believe it's about a guy who tries to defeat his father to gain his magical powers and kind of goes from there. This one is a fantasy book that's set in a fantasy world. Obviously there's magic, I'm assuming there's romance, treachery, betrayal, all that good stuff. So very excited for these two. And then the next book that I got, I'm not really sure where it came from, to be honest, but it came in the mail, and that is Between, Before, and After by Maureen Doyle McQuarrie. It seems to be about a girl, 14 years old, Molly Donnelly, who's worried about school, friends, and her parents' failed marriage, but mostly about her mother. It also seems to have something to do with her mother's past, something about a secret hidden in her mother's dresser might be a key to unlocking a family mystery dating to 1920s New York. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know what to expect because I've never even heard of this book, so we'll find out. Then the next book that I got from a giveaway, and that is The Porpoise by Mark Haddon. Hope I pronounced that last name correctly. This one I mostly got, one, because of the cover. I don't know, this cover just was really quirky and I kind of liked it. And also because I saw that this book is supposed to mirror the legend of Antiochus, and that is a Greek mythology or something related to that, and that really intrigued me. And this book basically follows the fact that it was an accident, the mother died, and all that's left is the daughter as well as the father, and now the father's obsession with his daughter's safety morphs into something sinister, and I don't know, but that just sounds really fascinating, and we'll find out. Then the next book that I got is from the publisher, and that is The Art of Breaking Things by Laura Simpson. This is a YA contemporary novel, and it follows a girl who embraces the power of her own voice. Her mother's ex-boyfriend comes back into her life, and I guess something about her ex-boyfriend hurt her in the past, and she has this dream of going to art school, and now because this ex-boyfriend comes back into her life, her dream of going into art school is getting further and further away. And now she's just trying to reclaim her future as well as protect her loved ones. So I'm actually really intrigued by this book. This book sounds really, really good, and I'm also loving this cover, so very excited for this one. The next book that I got was from a friend on Twitter. It's for a bookish wish, and that is Beware the Night by Jessica Fleck. So this book is actually really unique in the sense that there is a sun and then there's a night, and the citizens of this island, as long as they worship the sun, then they will be protected from all harm. And all you really have to do is just follow the rules, because those who end up getting sucked in or taken away by the night are never seen again. And apparently one of the things to gain the sun's continued protection is for a sacrificial offering. So this girl, her name is Vita, her grandfather is now offered to become the sacrificial offering to the sun. And now she finally sees that the protection that she's been promised comes at a very dangerous price. And now she's trying to figure out which of the stories that she's been told all her lives from the night are real and which of them are false. So I don't know, this book just sounds really, really fascinating and very unique and very different than anything I've read before. So I cannot wait to pick this up soon. Then the next few books that I got are from Book Outlet, because of course I have to have my Book Outlet purchases. And the first book that I got from there is The Window by Emilia Brunskill. Hope I pronounced that name correctly. So this is a YA mystery thriller. It follows two identical twins, and one day, one of them, her name is Anna, ends up sneaking out of her window and falls to her death. Everyone says it's an accident, but Jess somehow has a sneaking suspicion that it was not an accident. There were just a lot of things that didn't add up, such as where was she going, why was she going out that late, who was she meeting, all that stuff, etc. And the more she digs, the more she finds out about these secrets that others might not want her to know. So this book sounds really, really good. The next book that I got is A Blade is So Black by L.L. McKinney. This is basically a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, but it features a black female protagonist, which honestly, you guys all know I love my retellings, so I have really, really high hopes for this one. I mean, it sounds so fascinating, and I love the fact that there is diversity in this version, so very excited for this one. The next book that I got is A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis. This book came out a while ago, I want to say 2014, 2015, something like that, and it's a historical thriller novel. It follows a girl called Grace who apparently is mad, and she's now locked in this asylum. But she's not actually mad, she actually has a brilliant mind, and somehow she keeps that locked away. But then one day this visiting doctor comes and realizes that she actually has a brilliant mind as well as keen eyes, and decides that she is actually the perfect assistant for crime scenes. So now she is basically hunting for a murderer alongside the visiting doctor, I'm assuming, as well as confronting the demons of her past, which honestly I've heard really good things of this book. This book came out a while ago, so not that many people talk about it now, but back then a lot of people were really loving this book, so I have pretty high expectations for this. So the next book that I got is People Like Us by Dana Mel. Hope I pronounced that last name correctly. This is another YA thriller / mystery novel. This book follows a girl, her name is Kay, who has basically reinvented her present despite the fact that she has skeletons in her closet. And then one day, this girl's body is found in the lake, and now her perfectly constructed life is about to tumble. And the twist to this, and which is why I wanted to pick up this book, is because apparently the dead girl is leading Kay to this scavenger hunt. kind of investigation going on where she's leading her to all these different clues, revealing suspect after suspect along with her until she's basically in the middle of a murder investigation. So this book sounds really, really good. I've heard pretty mixed reviews about it, so I don't know, but the premise sounds really fascinating, so I guess we'll find out. Or I guess I will find out. The next book that I got is one that I got mostly because my bookstagrammers were talking about it a lot, so I was very curious for myself, and that is Next Year in Havana by Chanel Clayton. This is a historical fiction. It follows a woman who decides to go to Havana after her grandmother passed away, and this woman is also Cuban American, and there she discovers some of the roots of her identity as well as some family secrets. So I'm very curious about this book. A lot of people love this book, especially on Bookstagram. They're just like talking about it all the time. They're like 4 or 5 stars, so I'm very curious. I guess I'll find out. Then the next 3 books that I got from Book Outlet is part of a series or trilogy, and that is the Raven Shadow trilogy by Anthony Ryan. I have all 3 books here. This trilogy is an epic fantasy, and I feel like I haven't gotten any epic fantasy books in a while, so when I saw these books, I was very intrigued by it and I really wanted them. Plus, they seem to have all of your typical fantasy elements like magic, blood, treachery, betrayal. There's also this order in play, all that stuff, and so I was curious. I figured why not? They were on sale, so here I am. The next 2 books that I got are from Book Depository. The first one is The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie. This is another fantasy novel. This is actually her debut fantasy novel. This book is about a kingdom that is protected by a god called the Raven, but at their time of need, the Raven has basically disappeared and left them to fend for themselves. And it's at this time when this guy, the true heir to the throne, arrives. And somehow due to circumstances, he finds out that this Raven Tower, which is where this god was residing in, holds some secrets. So this book just sounds so good. I first found out this book when I was trying to order a book subscription box because I thought that this was the book, but then I think this other girl and I were trying to figure out what was a book for that month, and we found out that was not this book, but this book already piqued my interest a lot, so needless to say, I decided not to get the box, but just to get this book itself, so very excited for this one. Then the next book that I got from Book Depository is one that I got because it's not actually published in the US. It's only published in the UK as of now. So of course I had to get it because I actually included this in my spring reads recommendations video, so I'll link that above in case you want to check it out. But this book is We Are Blood and Thunder by Cassia Lupo. I actually did not know that this was a UK only book when I made that video, so if you want it, you have to get it from Book Depository. But this book just sounds so good. This is another fantasy novel where magic is feared, and it follows 2 women. One is trying to run for her life, and the other one is trying to get home. Then there's suddenly some sort of storm, and these 2 women end up being connected and linked, and I'm just very curious to find out what happens after. And this book sounds so good. The cover also looks gorgeous, so very excited for this one. And the next few books I got from the publishers, the first one is The First Mistake by Sandy Jones. So this is not the actual cover. This is the actual cover, and it looks so pretty. This is another thriller novel, and it follows a woman. Her name is Alice, and she has a perfect life with her second husband and 2 kids. She also has a best friend called Beth, who is just your perfect best friend essentially, but something happens, and I'm guessing Alice now thinks that she was wrong to trust Beth, and I'm kind of curious to find out what happens next. I mean, I like thriller mystery these. I feel like these days my go-tos are thriller mysteries as well as fantasies, so very excited for this one. The next book that I got from the publisher came kind of randomly, I want to say, because I don't really know about this book, and that is The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Leftieri, hoping I pronounced that name correctly. So this book seems to be about a guy called Nuri who is a beekeeper, and he lives with his wife called Afra, and they live in Syria. And then one day the unthinkable happens and their home is destroyed. So because of what happened, they end up having to travel through all of these countries to get to Britain, as well as journey to find each other again, which I'm guessing means not physically but emotionally. So I do think this book is kind of interesting, but I guess I'll find out for myself and I'll let you guys know. The next few books that I got are from Barnes & Noble. The first one is Only Human by Sylvain Nouvelle. This is the book 3 in the theme is spell, which means I now have the entire trilogy of this series, which I'm very excited for. So this basically means I can finally dive into the series, especially because you guys all know that I tend to binge read my series, so once I click them all, I can actually dive into them. So this is a sci-fi novel that follows a girl called Rose, who I guess somehow when she was a child, she stumbles upon this giant hand. It's a metal hand, by the way. And this discovery ends up setting a lot of events in motion, and decades later, Rose ends up being the scientist who's in charge as well as leading the team to finally solve this mystery. So I've heard so many good things about this series, but I have heard some mixed reviews as well, so I'm gonna go in it with lower expectations, but at the same time I love sci-fi, so very excited for this one. The next book that I got is Meet Cute by Helena Hunting. This book just sounds so adorable. So this is your average contemporary romance novel, chick lit kind of book, where it follows a girl who ends up meeting this guy who used to be an actor, and that was also the subject of her childhood crush. So of course when she ends up meeting him, she goes all fangirly and is embarrassed, and it's to the point that she ends up declaring her undying love for him. So this meet cute ends up turning into something more, I'm assuming, because I mean it's a chocolate novel, so I'm assuming they get together. I'd be very confused if they don't, but I'm so excited. I feel like this is a perfect beach read, so cannot wait to read this in the summer. Then the next book that I got is Tear Me Apart by J.T. Ellison. I got this book mainly because of two reasons. One, because this is a thriller novel and I'm in the mood for thriller. Also the cover, so I guess that's maybe there's three reasons, I guess. And the third and final reason is because this is the same author that wrote Lie to Me, and I haven't read that one yet, but I have really high hopes for that one, so I have high hopes for this one as well. So like I said, this is another thriller slash mystery, so I'm not going to go into the details, but it does say on the cover, everyone has a dark side, so that sounds so intriguing, and I'm very excited. The next book that I got is also from another author who has another book that is highly raved about. I haven't read it yet, I do have it, but I saw this book that came out recently, and I was like, well, I kind of want to check it out regardless, so this book is La Huntress by Kate Quinn. She is known for the Alice Network. So this book is kind of interesting in the sense that it's not just your typical historical fiction, but it seems to have some sort of element of Russian folklore as well. The story seems to revolve around the Huntress, obviously as per the title, who is a Nazi murderess. And the book follows three people whose lives somehow intertwine because of the Huntress, and I'm kind of curious to find out why and how they end up connecting and all that stuff. So regardless, this sounds really, really good. But I'm not really sure where the Russian folklore comes into play, so I guess I'll find out for myself. The next two books that I got are kind of similar in the sense that they're both historical fiction, so I'm just going to talk about them really briefly together. The first one is My Dear Hamilton by Stephanie Dray and Laura Kamoy, hoping I pronounced that last name correctly. And the other one is The Lighthouse Keeper's Daughter by Hazel Gaynor. So these are both historical fiction novels. This one is about Alexander Hamilton, like I'm assuming the wife of Alexander Hamilton. Whereas this book, it seems to feature two women that are separated by 100 years. And the reason why they're linked together is because of their acts of bravery and love. So both of these books sounds really, really good. So very excited for these two. The next book that I got is Lying in Wait by Liz Nugent. Hoping I pronounced that last name correctly. I feel like I'm just butchering all these names. I am so sorry. So this is another thriller mystery novel, but the reason why I'm most intrigued about this book is because it's supposed to be a gothic thriller novel, so I'm kind of curious to find out where this gothic aspect comes into play here. So I'm not going to go into detail about this book because I feel like sometimes for these mystery thriller novels, it's best to go in not knowing anything so you can actually be surprised, because sometimes the synopsis ends up spoiling things. So I didn't read the synopsis that much, and I saw the cover. It's a mystery thriller, a gothic mystery thriller, so very excited for this one. The next book that I got is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. I got this one because it kind of reminded me of The Hate You Give, because both of these books featured police brutality and they both feature a black protagonist. It follows a guy who's an honor student. Something happens one day, he's in the car, he's like has his music up real loud, and something happens with a white cop and somehow shots are fired, and after the whole thing went down, he's the one under arrest and in handcuffs. So people are wondering why. It's supposed to be raw, it's supposed to be gripping, so I have really high hopes for this one. Then the next book that I got is Wind Witch by Susan Dennard. So I have read the first one and I did mention that I was just okay with the book, but I found this one on like Book Outlet for like $3, so I was like, well, for $3 I am curious enough to find out what happens, because there is this one romance thing that I think is going to happen that I suspected from the first book, so I am curious to find out if that will actually pan out. So for $3 I was like, let me just pick this up and I guess I'll find out. So this is book 2 in the Witchland series. So I'm not going to talk about this book obviously because this is spoilers, but the first book follows a girl, I forget her name, there's like two girls, one's a truth witch and the other one's a thread witch. And truth witch basically just means that you can discern truth from lies from people, which apparently is a very rare ability. And then for thread witch, you can actually see the threads of everyone. So I guess if it's like red thread, it's able to connect you with your lover or something like that. I don't remember all the details specifically, but I was kind of curious about it. The main reason why I wasn't so sure about the series because I found some of the magic systems to be kind of confusing. But now that I have finished that book, I think I'm definitely going to go into this with a better understanding of the magic system. So I guess I'll find out. But I'm really hoping that this romance that I'm hoping will happen. So I guess I'll find out. Then the next book that I got is one that I got mostly because of her other books, and I really like the series, the world that they're set in, and that is The Language of Thrones by Leigh Bardugo. This is a collection of short stories that is set in the Grishaverse, and it's supposed to be like a bunch of myth and folklore and mythology and all that stuff. So I don't really like short stories, but for her, I was like, I really want to know more about the Grishaverse anyway, so I was very curious. And honestly, when I saw this book, look how beautiful the insides are. They're actually in different colors. They have all these borders. It looks so pretty. I'm actually really glad that I picked up this book. So Anyways, very excited for this one. The next book that I got is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So I got this book because a lot of people seem to have this book on their list when they include best sci-fi novels. So this is a sci-fi thriller novel to be specific, and it talks about parallel universes. So this book follows a man called Jason who ends up getting knocked out by some of his abductors, and then he wakes up in this parallel universe. So he's not just your average physics professor, but apparently in this new parallel universe, he's actually a genius. And the thing is, now he can't figure out what is actually life. Is it this life or is it the old life? What is real? What is not real? So I'm really excited for it. I've also heard some mixed reviews and it says that his writing is kind of complex, but I guess I'll find it for myself. But the premise sounds really, really good. So I saw this and I was excited for it. The next book that I got is one that I got because I realized I actually was missing another book from the series, and that is Gathering Darkness by Morgan Rhodes. This is book 3 of the Fallen Kingdom series. So I thought I was just missing book 2, but apparently I was also missing book 3. So now that I have book 3, I do have them all, I believe. I want to say I do. I might not have the last book because I think the last book just came out, so it might not be out in paperback yet. So I might not have the last one, but for all the ones that are in paperback, I do have them all, pretty sure. So very excited for this one. The next few books that I got were from Amazon. The first one is The Dark Descendant of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. So originally I wasn't sure if I want to pick up this book because I'm not the biggest fan of Frankenstein, but a lot of people from BookTube, especially from past year, I want to say, were raving about this book. They were just like, this book was so much better than expected. So I kind of have high expectations now. But basically, this is a reimagining of the classic Frankenstein, but I believe it follows a girl. I mean, her name is Elizabeth Frankenstein, so it's like a gender bender version of Frankenstein. So I guess I'll find out for myself if I like it or not. But I've heard a lot of good things, and I like Kirsten White's books in the past, so I have pretty high hopes for her writing at least. So I'm excited because I'll find out. The next book that I got is Stained by A.J. Howard. Initially, I was kind of hesitant about this book because I read her other book, which was Rosebud, and that one was supposed to be like a reimagining of Phantom of the Opera, and I did not like this book at all. But this one, I wanted to give this a chance because I've heard some pretty positive reviews, and also because it's supposed to be like a fairy tale, something to do with fairy tales like prince and princesses, etc. So that kind of piqued my interest there. And honestly, I want to give this author another try because she has another series I think is really, really popular. I think it's the Splintered series. Yeah, I don't exactly remember what that series is about, but that series is really popular. It's like one of her most popular series, I want to say. And so I do want to give this author another try and see if I like, if it's her writing style I don't like, or if it's something else, because I couldn't really pinpoint that in Rosebud. So I was curious, and it was on sale on Amazon, so I figured why not. The next book that I got is Spectacle by Jodi Lynn Zrok. Really hoping I pronounced that last name correctly. This is a historical thriller / mystery novel. It follows a girl who works at the morgue until one day she ends up getting some sort of vision about a young woman being murdered from the eyes of the murderer. So now with her newfound ability, she's trying to figure out what's going on. She's on the hunt for this killer, etc. So I'm definitely curious about this book. It sounds really, really good. And I haven't seen this book too much on the BookTube world, so I guess I'll find it for myself and I'll let you guys know. The last and final book that I got this past month is The Afterword by E.K. Johnson. This is a YA fantasy book that features a female-female relationship. And I've heard that this book is supposed to evoke a lot of classic fantasy series, like famous classic fantasy series, but has a modern twist to it, so I'm very curious on that end. And honestly, I've also heard that the focal point of the book honestly is a female-female relationship and not really on the fantasy action part, so I'm kind of curious to find out why. So anyways, I'm just really excited for this book. Definitely can't wait to check it out for myself. So anyways, these are all the books I picked up this past month. Let me know down below if you have read them. If you haven't read them, let me know down below. Are any of these books on your TBR list? Let me know down below as well. But if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!